All right, today we are pulling back the curtain on the AI power game in Silicon Valley. We're going to deconstruct the playbook, the hidden rules that really decide who wins, who loses, and why the story you read in the headlines is almost never the real story.
So let's just dive right in with a question that sounds simple, but is actually kind of baffling. A while back, a company called Looped, which was founded by a very young Sam Altman, got sold for $43 million. Now here's the catch. By all accounts, the company was a failure. So why on earth would somebody pay that much money for it? It turns out this one deal is like the key that unlocks the entire game.
See, the thing you have to understand about Silicon Valley is there are always two stories. On the one hand, you've got the public narrative. Oh, a successful acquisition, a brilliant founder moving on to their next big project. But then there's the insider reality. This wasn't really a purchase, it was a reputation rescue. And getting the difference between those two things is the key to understanding everything else we're going to talk about. So, if it wasn't about buying a successful company, what was it really about? Well, this gets us to the first hidden rule. The real currency in this world isn't what you think. It's not always about dollars and cents. It's about the stuff you're not really supposed to see. So what was the real reason for that $43 million deal? Well, anyone on the inside would tell you to read this list from the bottom up. The least important reason was the acqui-hire, buying the talent. The most important reason, the number one motivation, securing future access to a founder who everyone knew was a rising star. It was never an investment in a product. It was an investment in a person, in a future relationship. And this right here shows you exactly what that real currency is. It's not cash. It's getting access to future deals. It's being able to manage reputations, yours and others. It's about gaining leverage for the next negotiation. And it's about raw network power. That $43 million, think of it as just the transaction fee to buy these much, much more valuable assets. Okay, so let's zoom out a bit, because this idea of a reputation rescue isn't just about one founder. It's part of a much bigger system, a strategy we're going to call the soft landing playbook. It's basically the instruction manual for how powerful people can fail upwards. And here's the absolute heart of it. The success of a founder can be completely, totally disconnected from the success of their company. The institution itself can be a total wreck, but the individual can walk away not just fine, but often with even more power and influence than before. So how's it done? Well, here's how the playbook works. You know that massive, ugly blowup at the board level? That gets spun in the press as just a simple vision disagreement. When a founder gets pushed out, they don't vanish. No, they get a cushy job at a think tank, or even better, start their own venture fund. And crucially, their personal fortune was locked in long before the company started having problems. The whole public story is just meticulously managed from start to finish. I mean, this quote from our source material just nails it perfectly. You see this pattern again and again. Operational wreckage left behind, institutions damaged, but the narrative is controlled and the personal wealth is safe and sound. It's not a bug in the system, it's a feature. Now, this whole closed system, this carefully managed game, was just ticking along beautifully for the people on the inside. But then, an external shock came along and threw a giant wrench in the works. And that shock has a name. China. This is where the whole playbook starts to completely fall apart. You see, for a really long time, the whole strategy of the big US AI labs was based on one single core assumption. They believed they could control the most powerful AI models. They could keep them scarce and then use that scarcity to charge a premium, lock in profits, and totally dominate the market. An oligarchy, to put it simply. So, to protect this oligarchy, US policy tried to slow China down by cutting off their access to the best computer chips. The goal was to preserve America's lead, but it backfired. Big time. Instead of slowing down, Chinese companies were actually forced to get way smarter with their software and their algorithms. And it gave them a massive incentive to share their breakthroughs openly, which completely broke that scarcity model. Because here's the thing, here's the secret. You don't need the absolute world's best, most expensive AI model for 99% of what people want to do. The moment that widely available open source models become good enough, all the pricing power and all the control that the oligarchy was built on, it just evaporates. And this brings us to the brutal, simple truth. All this talk about using regulation or safety as a moat to protect the big players, it's kind of irrelevant now. Why? Because you can't build a wall around something that people can already download and run for free on their own computers. The game has just fundamentally changed. And listen, this isn't just a theory. Look at the data. A Chinese open-weight model like Kimi K2.5 is already performing at near parity with the absolute top-of-the-line proprietary models from the US. It blew past that good enough threshold ages ago. The competitive moat that was supposed to protect the incumbents, it's gone. But as big a deal as the competition from China is, it's not even the biggest problem. There's a much deeper, much more fundamental challenge that changes everything. The AI world is literally running out of its most precious resource. You really have to see AI history as having this one sharp dividing line. For about 40 years, let's say from 1980 to 2023, we were living in this golden age of clean, purely human-generated data on the internet. But around 2023, that all changed. The web became flooded with AI-generated content. We've now entered a totally new era, an era of data pollution and data scarcity.
And this creates this truly existential risk that scientists call model collapse. Basically, it's what happens when new AIs are trained on the weird, synthetic, not quite right data that was created by older AIs. They start learning from each other's mistakes, and you get this bizarre feedback loop that makes them get dumber and less connected to reality over time.
So here's the bottom line. The most valuable resource for creating real intelligence, that clean, high-quality archive of human writing, art, and conversation, is finite. It's a historical artifact from a 40-year window in time, and that window is now slammed shut. So, with all that, where do we end up? Now that we see the real currency, the playbook for failing upwards, and these twin crises of open competition and finite data, we can start to build a whole new mental model for understanding the AI endgame. The key takeaway here isn't about trying to predict which company is going to win or lose next quarter. It's about learning to recognize the underlying patterns. It's about understanding the real rules of the game so you can finally see past the headlines and the carefully managed narratives. So let's recap the hidden rules we've uncovered. Rule number 1, the real currency isn't money, it's access and reputation. Rule 2, in this system, a founder's success is deliberately separated from their company's results. Rule 3, a closed, controlled system can't survive against open global competition. And Rule 4, maybe the most important of all, the ultimate limiting factor is clean, finite human data. And all of that leaves us with one final, and I think pretty provocative question to think about. If the golden age of data is already behind us, if the primary fuel for creating artificial intelligence is a non-renewable resource that we've already mostly used up, then what does that truly mean for the future of intelligence itself?